Hi, this is Logan Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition and the new Magic the Gathering Adventures in Forgotten Realms, and how this very unusual new Magic the Gathering set may prompt, in my opinion, excuse me, may prompt a new edition type of Dungeons & Dragons. Okay, so first of all, one of my biggest issues with Dungeons & Dragons is the fact that is the fact that Wizards of the Coast is, and I do understand their desire here. I get why they're worried about this, but they have this desire where they want to know. They very desperately want to know what specifically is Dungeons & Dragons, right? So if you ask that question, it's pretty straightforward. Dungeons & Dragons is a tabletop role-playing game. It's played with 3 books. It's played with the DMG, the PHB, and the MM, okay? There you go. Simple, straightforward. That's Dungeons & Dragons. Maybe you could push to the point where you're saying, you could say, oh, Dungeons & Dragons is a tabletop role-playing game. It's the Essentials kit. And by the way, you can 100% play all the Dungeons & Dragons you want to with the Essentials kit. I'm convinced you could play for 3 years with the Essentials kit alone, and you would not even remotely run out of options to do with that, right? So there are those 2 versions. There's also, in my opinion, a stealth version of Dungeons & Dragons. Excuse me. The stealth version of Dungeons & Dragons is specifically the Adventurer's Guide, the Adventurer's Guide to Dungeons & Dragons, which is a young adult edition of Dungeons & Dragons, which are specifically, a handful of maybe about a half a dozen books now that are all, they're all like a Judy Blume size book. They're like, these books are specifically, basically, the Adventurer's Guide to Dungeons & Dragons are very small books that are specific, that are disguised to be presenting. They're disguised to present Dungeons & Dragons specifically to young adults. However, in the back of each book, there is 3 pages that explain how to play Dungeons & Dragons with and without dice. It is incredible. It's very much, in my opinion, a stealth edition, okay? So basically with this stealth edition, I think it's very real and it's very unique. So that's 3 editions of Dungeons & Dragons. But if you asked most people, they would only know the first, the PHB, the MM, and the DMG. So you have those in place, they're there, and you move forward with them, right? But with this new Magic the Gathering set, and Magic the Gathering Adventures in Forgotten Realms, that is going to function as an actual Magic the Gathering set. However, that set is going to contain cards that will, without a doubt, quickly show up on Dungeons & Dragons tables. Okay? So basically, one of the things that can happen is the sidekicks, right? Automatically can be, the sidekicks that we already use will be easily converted in from the character cards that are going to be presented in the set. So we know there's going to be dwarves, elves, humans. They're all going to show up. These are going to be creature cards in Magic the Gathering. But the way Magic the Gathering is structured, there are enchantments. Enchantments will be able to be structured as spells. There is equipment. There's literally equipment in Dungeons & Dragons. Equipment cards. They're equipped to characters. So basically everything, and and those equipment cards can be mundane and magical. So it's going to be, so basically this Magic the Gathering Adventures in Forgotten Realms will function as a real Magic the Gathering set, but without a doubt, it will also function as components in actual Dungeons and Dragons games. I know this for a fact because I plan to do it, right? So that's going to be one thing. It's it's going to happen, right? The only question is how is it going to be hundreds or thousands of players and dungeon masters that do this, right? So once we have this convergence of Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons, it opens the option for a fourth version of Dungeons and Dragons. Not even a version, I'm sorry, because of course, actually version is fine. It's actually really a type. So we'll call it version because first edition, second edition, so we already have a distinctor for that. That's edition. What we're talking about now is version, okay? So we can have a fourth version of the game, and it could be Dungeons and Dragons on cards, right? So your character sheet could be a deck, and then dungeon masters could create decks of dungeons that contain spells, creatures, and equipment. And then also you could put the rules of Dungeons and Dragons on cards. Now, without a doubt, you would have to massively reduce the rules, which I would be super up for, right? I definitely want the rules of Dungeons and Dragons to be shorter. So this opens the possibility of a Dungeons and Dragons version that is simply Dungeons and Dragons that is played out of cards, and that book goes away completely. Now, that sounds a little crazy, but the reality is Magic the Gathering Adventures in Forgotten Realm opened the door to the possibility of this. There's no question there's a market for this, right? I would buy this day one. No two ways about it. And honestly, I don't think it's that far of a stretch because we already have a ton of conversions for equipment and for spells going on, and for feats going on to cards, right? So the only thing we're really missing is rules, right? So if you just compress the rules down, you can really get rid of the book. Now, I don't think that there should ever be a day where we don't have the PHB, the MM, and the PHB, the Monster Manual, and the DMG, but this could be a very unique way to play Dungeons and Dragons in a different way, and I'm all for it. Now, just to be clear, this would mean you weren't writing anymore, right? You would actually not write anything on your character. You would adjust your character by putting cards in and cards out. I'm totally down for this. I'm so there for it. I really think this is a distinct possibility, and the odds of this becoming a reality are massively increased by even the approach of Magic the Gathering Adventures in Forgotten Realms. I am incredibly excited about this new set. I really, if you're a D&D player and you don't play Magic the Gathering now, get some decks. It's very cheap. You can get into Magic the Gathering for less than $20. Get 2 constructed decks. They're $10 a piece. They're very, very cheap. Maybe they're $15 now. But for less than $30, you can get 2 constructed decks, and you can play a game with your friend. And there's lots of great tutorials, and it's really worth it. And the reality is, we are about to see a head-on collision between Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons. I don't want you to be caught unaware. I really feel every D&D player needs to look at MTG, because these things are getting braided together, right? And they've always been impacting one another. And I think any D&D player that goes and D&D dungeon any D&D player and any dungeon master that goes forward in ignorance of Magic the Gathering is really not fully understanding the game, because MTG is its influence on Dungeons and Dragons, it's about to grow massively, right? So, and I also, just so you're aware, I really think we are about to have an influx of MTG players, because while MTG was presented to D&D for modules and in books, and D&D was like, we don't care, I don't think it's going to be the same way other round. I think because the MTG fantasy worlds are so suck, and comparatively the D&D worlds are so good, I really think we got an influx coming in. All that's my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing. Have a wonderful millennium.